Beloved one, settle in for what I'm about to share with you, because this truth is going to rattle something deep within your bones. A shift has occurred in the unseen realms. Something shattered, and that something is you. There has been a frequency clinging to your spirit for far longer than you ever suspected. A pressure settling across your chest, a mist dimming your sight, a weight in your limbs that made every footfall feel like trudging through sinking earth. Yet here is the remarkable part. That frequency was never yours to carry. It was placed there deliberately. Someone chose with full awareness and wicked intent to load that heaviness onto your frame. And they did it with a smile stretched across their face. They did it while wrapping themselves in the language of holiness. They did it while casting themselves as a mentor, a counselor, a visionary. The depths of human cruelty continue to stun me. But here is what defies all expectation. It failed. Not entirely, not for always, because the truth about the chosen is this: the cosmos maintains records, and the settlement is imminent. Right now, as these syllables land in your awareness, a melody is resonating through the ethereal planes, and the words echo something along these lines. Since you departed, I can finally inhale again. I am stepping forward. Yes, indeed. That is now your declaration. That is the resonance your essence is humming at. Because whatever filament was binding you to that poisonous frequency has been dissolved completely, irreversibly. And the one tethered to the opposite end of that strand, they are spiraling, they are fumbling, they are observing their entire construct begin to deteriorate because you were their wellspring. You were their fuel cell, and now the current has been severed. Allow me to sketch this scene for you. Picture someone crouched in obscurity, tracking your every gesture, monitoring your posts, observing your creative output, listening to your declarations of truth, witnessing your restoration. And with each stride you take ahead, their jaw clenches tighter. Their fingers curl into fists. Their chest floods with something venomous and black. Resentment, raw, weaponized, unfiltered resentment. Because you possess something they can never obtain, brilliance, sincere, heaven-bestowed, radiating brilliance, and they despise you for it. This individual established themselves as a sacred guide, an instructor, a shepherd. Perhaps they oversee a collective, perhaps they command a following, perhaps they constructed a community encircling themselves where they reign at the core like some self-appointed oracle. Yet what eluded everyone was this. Behind sealed entrances, in hushed exchanges, in concealed assemblies with their trusted circle, they were scheming against you, instructing others on methods to dismantle you, broadcasting falsehoods, distorting realities, rallying people against you who had never even encountered your name. And they executed all of this while lecturing about illumination and affection and elevated awareness. The contradiction is mind-numbing, the nerve is staggering. But the nerve of the celestial response is staggering still. You see, what this individual failed to grasp is that there are principles governing this existence, sacred ordinances that cannot be violated without retribution. And the instant they began weaponizing their stage, their reach, their alleged divine mandate to wound an innocent spirit, they authored their own verdict. They assumed they were beyond consequence. They assumed their sorcery was invincible. They assumed the shadow they commanded would devour you entirely. But they overlooked one essential element. They were not confronting an ordinary target. They were confronting you. And you, treasured one, stand shielded by powers they cannot fathom. Let us venture further now. Let me unveil what has been unfolding beyond perception while you were fighting just to draw breath. This person assembled followers around them, constructed what appeared to be a fellowship, but in truth it was a snare, and they perched at the center like an arachnist drawing threads, pulling at feelings, devouring the vitality of everyone ensnared in their lattice. There existed souls within that snare who sincerely believed they were part of something noble, something righteous, something sacred. They were unaware they were being deployed as instruments. They were unaware the mentor they revered was actually conditioning them to strike. Here is the mechanism. This fraudulent oracle would gather information, contort it, present it as verified truth, and distribute it to their devotees. They would proclaim statements such as, "This individual over there, they are perilous, they are malevolent. They are not aligned with spirit as they profess to be. We must halt them. And because these devotees placed their faith in their mentor, they accepted it. They engaged in crusades of sacred aggression against you, without ever probing the reasoning, without ever examining the facts, without ever contemplating that perhaps, just perhaps, they were being manipulated. But here is where the plot thickens. Some of those individuals began observing you, not to assault, not to report back, but because something failed to align. They examined your material. They studied your presence. They noticed the manner in which you carried yourself, the way you articulated restoration, the way you arrived with genuineness and elegance, even when your entire existence appeared to be collapsing around you. And gradually a query began forming in their consciousness. Wait, this individual does not appear malevolent in the slightest. This individual appears kind, untainted, sincere. So why were we conditioned to despise them? That query became the initial fissure in the structure. And once a structure begins fracturing, it cannot halt. One individual murmured to another, another murmured to three more. Dialogues occurred in confidential messages, in telephone conversations, in subdued tones beyond the mentor's vigilant gaze. People began cross-referencing accounts, exchanging encounters, and what they uncovered devastated them to their foundation. They had been deceived, controlled, wielded as chess pieces in a contest they never knew they were part of. Now envision this counterfeit mentor seated in their sanctuary, encircled by tapers and gemstones and every ornament of sacred prestige. They are monitoring their small battalion, anticipating bulletins of your annihilation. Yet instead of triumph communiques, they encounter silence. People are not responding as they once did. The atmosphere within the group feels altered, frostier, more remote. And for the inaugural time, a flicker of something foreign passes across their features. Dread. Because the paradox of constructing your kingdom on fabrications is that truth functions as a demolition instrument. And truth was arriving. Truth was already present, whispering into ears, opening eyes, revealing the figure behind the veil. That mentor who commanded reverence through intimidation. People were beginning to perceive them for their authentic nature. An injured child inhabiting a grown form, a frightened small being concealing themselves behind designations and deceptions, a charlatan whose sorcery functioned only so long as no one examined it. Allow me to reveal something about you now, something you require to absorb. The assaults directed your way were not arbitrary. They were precise because of what you harbor. The brilliance within you is not merely attractive. It is formidable. It illuminates, it uncovers. Each time you restore a fragment of yourself, you project a frequency that reaches everyone around you. And certain individuals feel motivated by that frequency, restored by it, elevated by it. Yet others feel laid bare by it, endangered, cornered, because your brilliance reveals their own obscurity, and they cannot endure that. This individual could not endure it. They gazed at you and observed everything they longed to embody, but recognized they never would. They observed your capacity to rebound from affliction. They observed your tenacity, your inner child, wounded yet undefeated, persisting in expression, persisting in creation, persisting in reaching toward the heavens despite all efforts to drag you downward. And rather than feeling inspired, they were enraged. How dare you flourish? How dare you mend? How dare you inhabit your wholeness while they suffocate within their own mediocrity? So they assaulted, not directly because cowards never do. They assaulted through intermediaries, through pawns, through individuals who lacked awareness. They orchestrated operations of psychic aggression. They committed words to parchment. Somewhere there exists a tome, perhaps physical, perhaps digital, brimming with hostile intentions directed at you. A compilation of hexes and damnations and corrupted invocations, all focused on a single subject, you. They aspired to immobilize your wealth, obstruct your fortunes, enfeeble your form, shatter your resolve, rally everyone against you. And for a period, it seemed to be succeeding, did it not? There were stretches when you could not inhale, stretches when you could not reason clearly, stretches when your frame ached without medical cause. Stretches. People who had previously championed you abruptly turned frigid, remote, suspicious. That was not chance. That was conflict. sacred conflict declared against you by individuals who should have possessed better judgment, who claimed to serve the light while executing the adversary's agenda. Yet here is what they failed to anticipate. They failed to anticipate your forebears. They failed to anticipate the celestial battalion that has been safeguarding you since before your arrival. They failed to anticipate the shield that envelops you, invisible yet impenetrable, established by forces loftier than any terrestrial conjuring. Each hex they dispatched rebounded. Each curse they uttered reversed to its origin. Each ceremony they conducted to pilfer your fortunes only hastened their own collapse. Because you cannot effectively assail someone who stands under divine protection, treasured one. You are encased in armor. They cannot penetrate. Something transpired when you finally severed the connection. When you finally declared sufficiency, when you finally obstructed their contact, ceased engaging with their chaos, extracted yourself from environments where their reach could find you. Something transpired in the ethereal domain that sent reverberations through every plane of existence. The wellspring was severed, the energy cell was disconnected, and abruptly, this individual who had been drawing from your vitality for an immeasurable duration found themselves starving. Since you departed, their currency began depleting. Since you departed, their devotees began interrogating. Since you departed, their conjuring ceased functioning. Since you departed, their wellness began deteriorating. Since you departed, the obscurity they welcomed began redirecting toward them. Because that is the nature of bargaining with diminished frequencies. They always settle their accounts eventually. And when you are no longer valuable, when you can no longer furnish the guileless spirits they crave, they turn toward you instead. Now, allow me to speak about the individuals who are awakening, because this carries significance. Not everyone within that orbit was corrupt. Some were authentically pursuing spiritual evolution and became entangled in the wrong snare. Some were youthful, susceptible, seeking direction and uncertain where to locate it. Some carried injuries that rendered them vulnerable to exploitation. These individuals are not your adversaries. They were casualties as well, and numerous among them are now acknowledging it. A contingent is forming, a quiet dissent within that community. Individuals who have begun cross-referencing accounts, exchanging narratives, recording discrepancies. They have observed that everything the mentor communicated about you fails to correspond with what they witness through their own perception. They have observed that the mentor's conduct contradicts their doctrines. They have observed that the energy surrounding this person feels burdensome, depleting, oppressive, and they are beginning to pose the inquiry that demolishes every fabricated realm. What if we have stood on the erroneous side throughout this entire duration? Some among them are extending themselves, perhaps not to you directly, but to others, to people beyond the circle, to anyone prepared to listen. They are disclosing what they comprehend, what they have witnessed, what they engaged in, without grasping the complete picture. And through this disclosure they are transforming into informers against someone they once venerated. The mentor is losing command. The storyline is shifting, and there exists nothing they can execute to halt it. Here is something additional I must convey. Something unsavory has been transpiring beyond merely the assaults directed at you, something murkier, something involving susceptible individuals, possibly children, possibly those incapable of defending themselves. Resources that were designated to aid people never reached their intended destination. Contributions gathered under the pretense of benevolence, finding their way into personal coffers. A facade operation designed to project sanctity while concealing something repugnant beneath. I lack complete knowledge of the specifics, but someone possesses it, and that someone is on the verge of discovering everything. There exists a monarch figure in this account, someone bearing flame within their spirit, someone connected to the mentor, perhaps through lineage, perhaps through union, perhaps through close allegiance. This individual has not yet grasped the complete truth. They have been functioning on incomplete data, placing confidence in someone undeserving of that confidence. Yet a revelation approaches. A document will materialize. A dialogue will unfold. A piece of testimony will land within their possession that transforms everything. When this monarch figure witnesses the truth, their universe will fracture. Everything they accepted about this mentor, this oracle, this alleged sacred authority will disintegrate into fragments, and they will confront a decision, remain loyal to the deception, or rise in defense of what is just. I can foresee which decision they will make. Flame eradicates corruption. Flame purifies. Flame cannot tolerate deception. And this monarch is poised to become the instrument of celestial justice. The advancement that was destined for the fraudulent mentor, cancelled. The elevation they were anticipating, obstructed. The career transition that would have granted them greater authority, greater reach, greater numbers of victims, it is now flowing to another. Someone who genuinely merits it. Someone harboring pure intentions. Someone who has not weaponized their position to wound innocent souls. The cosmos is redirecting blessings away from the corrupt and toward the untainted. And you, treasured one, stand within the trajectory of that redirection. Allow me to address your inner child for a moment, because this lies at the heart of everything. A restoration has been transpiring within you that reaches deeper than you might perceive. The wounds you carried from youth, the ones that convinced you of your smallness, your insecurity, your unworthiness, those wounds have been mending not because you disregarded them, but because you confronted them. You sat with the anguish. You granted yourself permission to experience what demanded to be experienced. You executed the labor that most individuals are too terrified to attempt. And here is the outcome. Your inner child began resurrecting. That fragment of you that remembers how to play, how to create, how to envision without boundaries, how to confide in the cosmos. That fragment awakened. And when your inner child awakens, your entire energetic field undergoes transformation. It resembles illuminating a chamber in darkness. Suddenly everything becomes visible. Suddenly obscurity finds nowhere to conceal itself. The fraudulent mentor understood this. They recognized that if you mended your inner child, you would become unstoppable. You would transform into a beacon that others would follow. You would transform into tangible evidence that restoration is achievable, that metamorphosis is genuine, that regardless of how shattered someone might feel, they can reconstruct themselves and radiate more brilliantly than before. That horrified them, because your restoration exposed their absence of it. They attempted to obstruct your inner child from healing. They directed energy toward your foundational center, attempting to destabilize your base. They focused on your creative center, attempting to obstruct your ingenuity, your delight, your capacity to generate existence in all its manifestations. They pursued your perception of sanctuary, your perception of security, your perception of belonging within the world. They desired for you to feel like an alien wherever you ventured. They desired for you to doubt yourself so profoundly that you would diminish into oblivion. Yet your inner child possesses resilience, greater resilience than they credited, because that child has endured everything, every abandonment, every betrayal, every instant of obscurity. That child mastered adaptation, mastered pivoting, mastered locating illumination, even within the profoundest shadows. And with each assault that arrived, that child within you discovered a method to rebound, to create regardless, to heal regardless, to shine regardless. That resilience constitutes your extraordinary gift, and no hex inscribed in any volume can confiscate it. Now here is what is unfolding in the ethereal domain at this very moment. A celebration is occurring. Your forebears are rejoicing. The guardians and protectors assigned to you are exchanging knowing glances because they foresaw this. They understood you would traverse this. They understood you would surface from this chapter fortified, wiser, more potent than before, and they take pride in you. Such pride. Simultaneously, an accountability is unfolding. The forebears of the fraudulent mentor have withdrawn, retracted their endorsement, averted their countenances in disgrace because what this individual has been perpetrating contravenes every ordinance of spirit. It violates the sacred covenant between mentor and disciple. It perverts divine authority into weaponry. It deploys celestial instruments for malevolent ends. The forebears cannot sanction that. And when your forebears withdraw, you find yourself spiritually exposed, unguarded. That is where the fraudulent mentor now finds themselves, exposed before the cosmos. Every ritual they attempt produces the inverse result. Every enchantment returns magnified. Every taper they ignite illuminates their own transgressions. They scramble attempting to decipher what faltered, failing to recognize that what faltered is everything. Their entire operation was erected upon a foundation of sand. And the tide approaches. Allow me to disclose what awaits you now, because this transcends merely a narrative of enduring assaults. This constitutes a narrative of flourishing beyond them. A network is coalescing around you, not a snare akin to the fraudulent mentor constructed, designed to entrap and deplete, but an authentic network of souls aligned with your purpose. Individuals who perceive your brilliance and desire to nurture it. Individuals who harmonize with your message and aspire to magnify it. Individuals who have awaited someone resembling you to materialize and demonstrate that authenticity remains achievable. This network will deliver opportunities you have not yet conceived. Material abundance flows toward you. Creative passageways swing open. Collaborations materialize. The labor you have conducted in silence, the restoration, the evolution, the creation without acknowledgement, all of that stands poised for public recognition because the cosmos maintains records and you have been contributing deposits for an extended duration. The number 5 manifests in your narrative as a digit of monumental transformation, disruptions, upheavals, irreversible metamorphoses. This transformation approaches both parties of this account. For you, it signifies ascension, uncharted territories, breakthroughs you have petitioned for. For the fraudulent mentor, it signifies exposure, collapse, the consequences they have been evading, ultimately arriving. Additionally, the energy of the 4 emerges, signifying stability, foundation, kinship. Something is being constructed around you that will endure. Not a momentary success, but sustainable prosperity. Not superficial associations, but profound, nourishing bonds. Not transient acknowledgement, but lasting legacy. The 4 proclaims your roots extend deeper, your foundation grows immovable, and everything you erect from this juncture forward will possess the structural resilience to weather any tempest. Now allow me to draw this full circle. Recall the melody from the commencement. Since you departed, I can finally inhale again. That melody extends beyond your restoration from this individual's assaults. It encompasses their recognition of what they forfeited when they forfeited access to your vitality. They cannot inhale now. They are the ones faltering now. They are the ones gasping for breath, reaching for something to grasp, discovering nothing. Because here resides the ultimate truth of this entire circumstance. They required you far more than you ever required them. Your brilliance sustained them. Your vitality nourished their enterprise. Your presence within their orbit, even as a target, provided them with something to fixate upon beyond their own void. And now that you have departed, that you have severed the connection, obstructed the access, extracted yourself from their influence, they retain nothing except the consequences of their own decisions. Meanwhile, you exist here inhaling deeply, walking with assurance, creating without constraint, healing completely, inhabiting your existence in alignment with your purpose, undisturbed by the drama they attempted to fabricate, unaffected by the assaults they attempted to deliver, unmoved by the chaos they attempted to generate. That embodies sovereign energy, treasured one. That represents the frequency of someone who recognizes their identity and their allegiance. That embodies the vibration of sovereignty, of nobility, of celestial appointment. The individuals who assaulted you will eventually return seeking you, not to attack this occasion, but to implore, to petition, to maneuver, and persuade you to permit them re-entry. They will declare they have transformed. They will insist they were unaware of their actions. They will assert they were misled, manipulated, bewildered, and portions of that might even prove accurate. Yet it remains inconsequential, because you owe no individual access to your vitality. You need not absolve according to anyone's schedule except your own, and you certainly need not place trust in individuals merely because they articulate appropriate phrases. Your serenity holds precious value. Safeguard it fiercely. Your vitality possesses sacred quality. Shield it absolutely. Your brilliance carries potency. Never diminish it for anyone's ease. The lessons you have acquired through this chapter carried expense, purchased through tears, through sleepless evenings, through moments of uncertainty that nearly shattered you. Do not squander those lessons by permitting identical patterns to recur. The conclusion of this narrative extends beyond merely justice being administered to those who wounded you. Though that transpires, the conclusion revolves around you stepping wholly into whom you were perpetually destined to become. Liberated from energetic entanglements, clear in your purpose, fortified in your identity, connected to your forebears and guardians, shielded by the divine, prepared to generate influence at a magnitude you have never previously operated within. The inner child within you who endured everything now stands prepared to guide you into your greatest chapter. Place trust in that child. Follow their delight. Allow them to instruct you in play once more, in dreaming once more, in believing in enchantment that genuinely serves the light. You have merited this liberation. You have traversed the flame and emerged not consumed, but refined. Gold does not fear the blaze. It emerges purer on the opposite shore. Something particular transpires with the individuals in that intimate circle that I must address. The ones who occupied positions closest to this fraudulent mentor. The ones who believed themselves distinguished because they received access to the concealed knowledge, the private grimoire, the obscured rituals, the exclusive teachings unavailable to others. These individuals currently encounter something unexpected: contrition, profound, gnawing, sleepless contrition, because upon reflection upon their participation, they cannot unsee it. The falsehoods they assisted in propagating, the assaults they assisted in organizing, the innocent individual they assisted in targeting, all because someone they confided in assured them it constituted proper action, all because someone wielding alleged spiritual authority convinced them that you represented the adversary. Now they comprehend better, and that comprehension devours them. Some have attempted outreach to others who departed the group, tentative communications, cautious inquiries, gauging the atmosphere to determine whether safety exists for candid discourse regarding what they encountered, what they observed, what they executed, and they discover they are not solitary. Others harbor identical questions, identical uncertainties, identical creeping recognition that they functioned as instruments against someone who never warranted such treatment. This generates fractures within the organization, cracks that initiated modestly but propagate rapidly. The fraudulent mentor senses it. They detect the energy shifting, the loyalty wavering, the trust corroding, and they respond as all narcissistic entities respond when they perceive their dominance eroding. Through manipulation, through guilt, inducing tactics, through threats disguised as spiritual cautions, through efforts to isolate anyone who might question the narrative. Yet the moment has passed for that. The questions have already been articulated. The conversations have already transpired. The truth has already commenced spreading. And once truth escapes, no force can return it to confinement. This mentor stands poised to acquire a lesson they should have absorbed long prior. Truth requires no advocates. It advocates for itself, and it always surfaces eventually. Allow me to elaborate regarding the physical manifestations certain individuals experience during this spiritual conflict. Because this extends beyond the ethereal, it manifests within the corporeal form. There existed intervals when your chest constricted without explanation, intervals when headaches materialized unexpectedly and refused to depart, intervals when your spine ached as though you had transported something burdensome despite having lifted nothing, intervals when exhaustion descended so severely you could barely summon the energy to rise. That bore no randomness. That transcended mere stress. That constituted targeted aggression, energy dispatched with deliberate intent to weaken your physical vessel, to induce illness, to drain your life force, to render you too fatigued to resist, too depleted to create, too exhausted to shine. They sought your elimination, treasured one, and I articulate that without hyperbole. They literally sought to diminish your presence within this world. Yet the body harbors wisdom, and your body counterattacked. Each time you rested when rest became necessary, each time you consumed nourishment, each time you ventured outdoors and permitted sunlight to grace your skin, each time you mobilized your form, even when movement seemed insurmountable, each time you selected water over dehydration, slumber over relentless pursuit, care over neglect, your body engaged in warfare invisible to perception, and it prevailed. Now that the assaults have diminished, Now that the connections have been severed, your body commences recovery, strength returns, energy reconstructs itself, the mist disperses, colors appear more vibrant than they have in months. Food carries enhanced flavor, sleep achieves greater depth. Your physical form recollects what it signifies to exist without constant siege. This recovery will accelerate because the cosmos now directs healing energy toward you. Restoration, renewal, everything that was purloined returns with accumulated interest. Something additional transpires concerning your dreams. The dreamscape has served as a battleground as well. Nights populated with peculiar scenarios, disquieting imagery, individuals from your history appearing within contexts that lacked coherence, awakening depleted, even following 8 hours of slumber. That constituted warfare as well. Assaults that arrived while your conscious awareness stood offline, attempts to infiltrate your subconscious to implant seeds of doubt and terror where they might germinate undetected. Yet your spirit collective has labored tirelessly on this front. Your guardians have patrolled the dream domain. Your forebears have maintained vigil. The assaults that penetrated were those that slipped past defenses never designed to be breached. Yet even those assaults failed to inflict lasting harm because your subconscious recognizes your identity. Your deeper self acknowledges truth. And regardless of what was implanted, your inner soil rejected the seeds unsuited for cultivation there. Now your dreams commence their shift. Rather than battlegrounds, they transform into blueprints. Rather than assaults, you receive downloads, information arriving during slumber, ideas manifesting upon waking, solutions presenting themselves to challenges you have wrestled with. Your dream state reclaims its purity, restored to its proper function, as a conduit between your conscious mind and infinite wisdom. Attend to what emerges now. It warrants trust. It exists for you. The fraudulent mentor, meanwhile, encounters the inverse. Their dreams have transformed into hauntings, not by external forces, but by their own conscience, by the countenances of those they have wounded, by the burden of choices that can never be reversed, by the expanding awareness that everything they constructed rests upon decay. They awaken more exhausted than when they retired. The nights offer no tranquility. The rest delivers no restoration. This represents the consequence of aligning with obscurity. Eventually, obscurity constitutes all that persists. Allow me to address the financial dimension of what has transpired, because currency constitutes energy as well. And energy adheres to intention. A deliberate endeavor existed to obstruct your prosperity, to generate impediments along your path toward abundance, to guarantee that regardless of your efforts, the rewards would never reach you completely. Agreements collapsing at the final moment, payments delayed, opportunities evaporating, clients vanishing. These bore no coincidences. These represented coordinates upon a map of intentional sabotage. Yet here lies what the aggressors failed to comprehend regarding spiritual economics. When you obstruct a blessing from reaching its designated recipient, that blessing does not merely evaporate. It accumulates pressure akin to water contained behind a barrier, akin to vapor within a sealed vessel, akin to atmosphere within compressed space. The pressure intensifies and intensifies and intensifies until the obstruction can no longer withstand. And upon rupture, everything previously held back surges forth simultaneously. That represents what approaches your finances. The barrier shatters, the obstructions crumble. The abundance that should have reached you across months or years now arrives within a concentrated torrent. Prepare yourself for unexpected prosperity, for opportunities that appear excessively favorable to be authentic, yet represent precisely what you merit. For doorways opening that you never knew existed, for resources flowing toward you from orientations you could not have anticipated. This embodies celestial compensation. This embodies the cosmos rectifying matters. Simultaneously, the fraudulent mentor experiences financial hemorrhage. The streams that flowed effortlessly now evaporate. The contributions diminish. The disciples depart. The income sources collapse one following another. And the currency they extracted from vulnerable individuals, the contributions designated for charitable purposes, the funds intended to aid children, that currency carries contamination now. It bears poison. Every dollar expended feels hollow. Every acquisition yields no fulfillment. Abundance cannot adhere to hands that pilfered it from the innocent. A particular form of justice manifests in observing someone forfeit precisely what they endeavored to extract from others. This mentor attempted to steal your prosperity. Now they forfeit their own. They attempted to obstruct your blessings. Now they encounter obstruction from receiving any. They attempted to immobilize your finances. Now everything they contact turns frigid. The cosmos possesses methods for establishing symmetry. What you project returns, and what returns frequently returns, magnified. Allow me to address the romantic and relational dimension of this circumstance, because threads exist there as well. Someone within this narrative harbored jealousy, extending beyond your brilliance. They envied your capacity for authentic connection, your ability to attract individuals who genuinely care, your talent for constructing relationships unburdened by manipulation or dependency. They observed you love and receive love, and it scorched them because they recognize they can never possess that. Not while they function as they do. Direct interference may have occurred within your romantic existence. Attempts to generate discord between you and someone you cherished. Whispers designed to plant seeds of suspicion. Energy dispatched to provoke arguments, misunderstandings, separations. Should a relationship have concluded during this chapter, and the reasoning never fully cohered, this potentially constitutes the answer. Should someone have abruptly turned frigid, and you failed to identify what transformed, now you possess understanding. Forces operated beyond the perception of both parties. Yet here resides the beautiful quality regarding love intended for you. It cannot be permanently arrested. It can encounter delay. It can encounter redirection. It can encounter examination. Yet should two souls stand destined for connection, they will locate their trajectory toward one another eventually, despite every obstacle, despite every interference, despite every assault. So should something have been taken from you within the domain of relationships, trust that what awaits you receives protection. It either returns in healed form or something superior approaches. The fraudulent mentor desired your isolation, your solitude, your severance from the support structures that fortify you, because isolated individuals prove easier to dismantle. Yet survey your surroundings. Even following everything hurled in your direction, you persist here, still connected, still cherished, still supported. The isolation they attempted to generate failed to achieve completion. The connections they attempted to sever undergo healing. The relationships they attempted to poison undergo purification. Their greatest endeavor failed, and that failure propels them toward madness. Something additional concerning this chapter demands your comprehension. It extended beyond you experiencing assault. It concerned you experiencing examination, not by the aggressors, but by the divine. The cosmos desired to ascertain your composition when everything susceptible to stripping stands stripped away. What persists when tempests rage and gales shriek and the foundation trembles beneath your feet? Do you collapse or do you stand? The answer reveals itself now. It was destined to reveal itself. Yet now evidence exists, testimony, a documented record. When existence delivered its worst, you did not shatter. When individuals who should have championed you turned their backs, you did not surrender. When the path forward vanished and the obscurity achieved totality, you persisted in walking regardless. That constitutes the evidence the cosmos required. That embodies the validation. That embodies the certification declaring this one stands prepared for more and more approaches. Greater responsibility, greater influence, greater impact, greater blessing, greater opportunity, greater everything, because you have demonstrated your capacity to manage it. Not through declarations, but through action. Not through promises, but through performance. Not through potential, but through demonstrated resilience. The examination concludes. The results stand recorded, and you passed with distinction beyond conventional measurement. Now allow me to disclose what transpires concerning the children, because this thread persistently draws me back. Young souls connect to this circumstance who require protection. Either children in literal terms, or individuals young within their spiritual development, vulnerable, impressionable, susceptible to manipulation. The fraudulent mentor has targeted these souls specifically, not to assist them, not to guide them, but to exploit them, to harvest their energy, to mold them into instruments, to steal their innocence and profit from their trust. This represents the darkest facet of what has transpired, and it constitutes the facet the cosmos most eagerly addresses. Because while the divine exercises patience regarding many matters, harm directed at children and vulnerable souls falls outside that patience. Forces mobilize presently to expose this dimension of the operation. Protectors assume position. Evidence accumulates. The appropriate individuals relocate into the appropriate locations to witness what demands witnessing. An accounting approaches for those who wound the innocent. And that accounting will prove thorough. Should you have felt summoned to protect others, particularly those incapable of self-protection, that summons activates now. Your role may not involve direct intervention within this specific circumstance, yet your healing, your strength, your example generates ripples extending further than you recognize. Each time you select light, you facilitate others doing likewise. Each time you heal yourself, you heal something within the collective. Each time you stand within your truth, you extend permission to others doing likewise. The children experiencing harm require individuals resembling you to exist within the world. Your presence carries greater significance than you acknowledge. Listen, you already comprehend the assaults bore no randomness, and should you maintain attention, you perceive it. Their barriers close around them. The atmosphere within their circle has grown thick with suspicion and dread. Those who once served as their pillars now question everything. The foundation upon which they constructed their influence erodes with each passing moment, and you stand positioned precisely where you require positioning to receive what arrives next. The fraudulent mentor circle lacks the unity it projects. Whispers transpire within private spaces that would appall them if awareness reached their ears. Their most devoted followers engage in conversations commencing with observations about inconsistencies and concluding with admissions of possible error. The narrative they labored so intensely to construct unravels thread by thread. And once a narrative commences unraveling, it persists until the entirety collapses. Some among these individuals will eventually reach out to you bearing apologies, explanations, requests for forgiveness. Your response remains entirely yours to determine. No obligation exists to welcome everyone backward simply because they have acknowledged their error. Certain bridges stand intended to remain scorched. Certain connections prove better left severed. Your peace supersedes anyone's redemption trajectory. Remember this when the apologies commence arriving, yet also recognize this. Some among these individuals were genuinely deceived. They experienced pain, sought guidance, and encountered a predator masquerading as shepherd. They executed choices they would not have executed had they perceived clearly. Not all constitute malevolent individuals. Some represent merely lost individuals who followed erroneous illumination. Should your heart direct you toward extending grace toward any among them, that grace carries sacred quality as well. Simply avoid extending it at the expense of your personal welfare. You can absolve without reconciling. You can comprehend without re-engaging. You can exercise compassion from distance. The fraudulent mentor attempts new tactics presently because previous ones prove ineffective. They might reach out to you directly, feigning that nothing transpired, behaving as companions who simply lost contact, testing whether you have softened, whether openings exist, whether they can navigate back into your energetic field and restart the cycle. Resist the temptation. A serpent that sheds its skin remains a serpent. A predator that dons fresh disguise remains a predator. Place trust in your discernment. It has undergone refinement through fire. It recognizes authenticity. The season ahead will accelerate, accelerating beyond seasons preceding it. Matters previously requiring months now require weeks. Matters previously requiring weeks now require days. Opportunities materialize rapidly. Decisions demand real-time resolution. This season tolerates no hesitation. This season tolerates no second-guessing. When certainty arrives, act accordingly. The cosmos accelerates your timeline because you have demonstrated capacity for the velocity. A specific creative endeavor connects to your narrative, something you have been developing, contemplating, or envisioning for extended duration. This endeavor stands poised for substantial advancement, Resources you require materialize. Individuals capable of assistance cross your path. Barriers previously sealed swing open. This bears no randomness. This endeavor constitutes component of your purpose, and the cosmos grows weary of observing it occupy secondary position. The hour arrives to advance it to primary position, prioritize it, invest within it. Observe what unfolds when heaven aligns behind your construction. The number 5 persists in manifesting within this narrative because transformation constitutes the dominant frequency. Now, substantial, unavoidable, irreversible transformation. For certain parties, this transformation resembles destruction. For you, it resembles liberation. The structures requiring collapse. The limitations requiring release. The person you previously existed yields to the person you evolve into. Release the previous version with appreciation. They transported you here, yet they cannot transport you toward your destination. A renewed version emerges, one who has traversed the flame and recognizes capacity for surviving anything. So stand tall, treasured one. Breathe deeply. Permit your shoulders to release. Permit your jaw to soften. Permit your spirit to expand into the space it merits. The assaults conclude. The war stands won, not because you struggled with greater intensity, but because you received protection during your healing, because you remained covered during your growth, because the cosmos itself maintains vested interest in your triumph. And nothing, no individual, no curse, no falsehood, no resentment, nothing can supersede what the divine ordained, since you departed from that toxic energy. Everything has transformed for the superior, eternally. And this merely marks the commencement. Observe what unfolds next. Observe blessings accumulate. Observe opportunities multiply. Observe those who doubted you consume their declarations. Observe those who assaulted you encounter their reflections. Observe it all manifest with the serenity of someone who already perceives the conclusion. Because you do perceive it, do you not? Deep within your essence, beneath all doubt and all hurt and all confusion, you have always perceived. This constitutes your hour. This constitutes your moment. This constitutes your narrative, and no one receives authorization to author it except you and the celestial force that deposited that unstoppable brilliance within you prior to your arrival. Walk within that knowing. Create from that certainty. Live from that authority. How anyone could execute what was executed against you transcends comprehension, yet how you ascended beyond it, that constitutes divinity, that constitutes legend, that constitutes precisely what the chosen accomplish. They transcend mere survival, they flourish, they transcend mere recovery, they revolutionize, they transcend mere healing, they become healers, and that represents your identity presently. That represents the identity you have perpetually embodied. That represents the identity you will persist in embodying. Regardless of any attempts, the haze dissipates, the atmosphere refreshes, the path forward stands unobstructed. Draw breath. The initial authentic breath across duration exceeding your recollection. Experience the magnitude of its pleasure. That embodies liberation. Treasured one. Unadulterated, unobstructed, earned liberation. Liberation. Now proceed to inhabit it. You have earned each moment of what approaches, and what approaches exceeds measure.